Bonjour, everyone. Welcome back to Tiny Monsters, I guess. I guess that's what I'm calling it. Well, considering today's subject matter is snails, I figure it would only make sense if we come to French Canada. Yeah, we came to French Canada. They're having an escargot eating contest that Eric has entered. I don't know how he's doing, but regardless, let's get into today's subject matter. Gastropods. Gastropods, which literally means stomach foot, are a class of mollusks consisting of creatures that are defined by the fact that, as their name suggests, have a single foot on their front bottom, which is traditionally the stomach area of most species, except that most gastropods have their stomach in their back area, so, eh. Gastropods are a very diverse group, making up a very large percentage of all mollusks, with the two main groups being snails and slugs. And even between them, there's also land and sea variations, which have their own differences. On land, we have the snails. These guys are famous for the shells they have on their back, which is made of calcium, and this is the snail's primary defense mechanism, since if you know anything about snails, you'd know that they are very slow. So as such, if threatened, they retreat into their shell until the threat is gone. Snails have a varied diet, but due to their speed, they generally have to eat still things like plants or carrion. The largest gastropod is also a snail, being the African giant snail, which is nearly a foot long. Slugs are very similar to snails, having evolved to be shellless. Because they can't rely on that for protection, they instead develop their own defense mechanism. Most species, like the banana slug, make themselves so slimy that they become impossible to take a bite out of without getting a mouthful of nasty goo. But others curl themselves up into a ball that's hard to get a grip on. Another thing about these guys is that because they rely on moisture to keep themselves alive, they absolutely cannot be exposed to salt. It'll dry them up and make them die. So that's fun. In the ocean, these two groups have evolved in their own unique ways. Aquatic snails are pretty similar to the land counterparts, being slow moving creatures, but in the water this time. However, there are some that are pretty unique. For example, there's whelks, which are active predators hunting down bivalves like clams. If you've ever been to the beach and seen clam shells with holes in them, it's because of a whelk. See, they have a very sharp beak which allows them to break through the clam's shell and suck out the clam's innards. Or you got the violet snail, which travels on a bubble raft at the surface of the water where it eats things like plankton and jellyfish. Or there's cone snails, which are incredibly venomous. There's also sea slugs, which are known as nudibranches. Sea slugs come in many different, very vibrant colors and shapes, but most of them are technicolor slugs with branchy antennas, and a lot of species are covered in feelers on their back. Within nudibranches, most of them are bottom feeders and things like that, but you also got things like the blue sea slug, which feeds on man-o-war tentacles, and then it keeps the venom in its own spines, so that it can use it for its own defenses. Now that we got that out of the way, let's look at the cards. Now, within the gastropod cards, the only error I can find is that it calls the cone shell a cephalopod instead of a gastropod. So yeah, that's an error. But every other gastropod card is fine from what I can tell, so they're all pretty good. Also, you might have noticed that none of these are actually tiny terrors, but I put a tiny terrors in the part of the title. Shut up. It's our series, so we make the rules. Now, humans and gastropods do not have the best relations. Gardeners hate them since they eat crops, a lot of people find them disgusting, and cone snails can paralyze you. It's not all that bad, though. Some people find snails very interesting, and people do keep them in captivity. And snails are loved by aquarium owners since they eat algae. And of course, people eat snails for food. This is best known for being in France, where it's called escargot, but there are other countries that eat gastropods too. They're described as tasting like butter. Snails are also used as a shorthand symbol used for slowness, and their weakness to salt is often joked about in media. So there's that. Well, that's all for this video. I'll see you guys next time when we move on to another series since we used up all the monsters of the deep. Well, see you guys next time, and I wonder how Eric is doing in his contest. More, I need more, more. Well, looks like I have to go Eric hunting. Again. Well, see you guys later. Goodbye.